Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Office Hours with Jess. Today, I will be talking to you all about Qualtrics and doing a little intro session on how to get it set up if you've never set up a Qualtrics account, and then walk through some very basic ways to build a survey in Qualtrics. I love Qualtrics, and I'll tell you a little bit more why later because it is quite user-friendly. So, this is really only the bare bones of how to use it, but I'm hoping that this can help get you started and then you can play around more with it, watch other videos and tutorials and guides, but this is really just the beginning steps of learning how to use Qualtrics. So today I will go over a brief just overview of just why we design surveys, how to administer them a little bit, and why Qualtrics is so helpful with that. We will sign up for a free Qualtrics account if that is available to you through your university. And then we will learn how to use Qualtrics. And if you are a student, this is something that is really great because you can actually put this on your resume or your CV as a skill that you have because Qualtrics is a platform. It is a software, and a lot of organizations use this to build surveys, field surveys, evaluations, or even just like for kind of internal event tracking, everything. So Qualtrics is really useful, and I think it's just a great tool to have. And that's why I teach my students how to use this in my classes so they can walk away from the class with like, oh, wow, I actually learned a skill that I can put on my resume, which is an example like this. So again, just quickly, surveys again are a combination of questions that you ask participants to answer. I'm sure many of you have taken a survey before. Generally, it's like, a form or a lot of questions with a lot of choices. And again, you'll see why Qualtrics is a really great platform to build this. Some reasons why we might create surveys in public health research are to understand if a program is achieving a desired goal or impact. That's what I teach my students in one of my classes. We I tend to use surveys to ask people about their perceptions, their health, and their behaviors, especially around substance use, since that's where all my research is. And then surveys also tend to include a lot of demographic questions. So questions about people so that you can understand who is taking your survey and comprising your sample of participants of the survey. So what is in a survey usually? If you are doing a research study, and just in general, it is always good to get consent from the participant or the person taking your survey that they are answering these questions for whatever reason you've set forward. So usually the very beginning, at least for research purposes, IRB requires that you have the consent form at the beginning. Then you have a little brief introduction. It's always good to explain what your study is about, and kind of what kinds of questions you might be asking. And then the rest of the survey is just all of those questions that you want to ask put together. And then usually at the end of the survey, sometimes at the beginning too, you'll have demographic questions. And generally those tend to be optional because you never want to, force someone to reveal information about themselves if they don't want to, about who they are, when they're giving you a lot of other information. So generally, this is not 100% what you're always going to see, but kind of generally what I tend to see when it comes to public health surveys. And the way surveys that can be done, I'm sure you all know and probably have taken a paper survey before where it's like a bunch of multiple choice questions and you're answering them on paper. But this was like a thing many, many years ago, but I think it's hardly ever done because, once you have things on paper, you have to somehow put them into the computer so you can aggregate and analyze all that data. So that's why you have all these really amazing softwares now that have digitalized that whole process. And there are many platforms. Qualtrics isn't the only one. There's like so many. There's RedCap, there's Google Forms, there's SurveyMonkey. Qualtrics is just one of them, and I am biased because I've used Qualtrics throughout my career and my time as a student, and it's always been available to me through my institutions. But I have found that Qualtrics, compared to some of the other platforms that I have used, everything that I had listed there, I think Qualtrics is a lot more user friendly. It's pretty kind of high tech, or like things just drag and drop and like move around really seamlessly. It helps you automate a lot of really complicated procedures. It has a lot of functions for creating skip logic and display logic so that you can create really um, complex surveys without much training, which is how I've used Qualtrics because I was like, wow, I can create these cool branching techniques and I like barely know how to code or do anything like that. So it's really great for that sense. And it organizes everything into one place, I think. And you'll see why when we actually go in and look at Qualtrics. And it can also help you with very basic data analyses, like running some basic descriptives and comparisons and whatnot. So it has some very basic uh, capacity to do that. So if you are able to have a free account through your institution, I know that my Cal State Long Beach students, you do get Qualtrics for free, which is great. So I'll take this time while you're watching this video in this moment to go to your institutional website. You can usually type in like your institution name and then Qualtrics and see what comes up. And you never know. You will probably have access to Qualtrics through your institution. And if you do, take the steps to do so. I'm going to just walk through the steps of how you do it if you are a Cal State Long Beach student, which you go to your single sign-on for Cal State Long Beach, and then you can locate a Qualtrics tile. And then when asked if you have a secondary account, I would say no. If you're from another institution and you're also getting this question, also click no, because if you say you have a secondary account, it's going to get really confused. So just create a new one and have that dedicated for now moving forward. And then accept any agreements on the screen and move forward. Again, if you are a Cal State Long Beach student and you're watching this, the Qualtrics tile looks a little bit like that. So you can look for the Qualtrics logo. Okay, now we are going to explore Qualtrics. Here's a list of all of the topics I'm going to walk us through now. Again, this is just a very basic outline of a couple of the very many features that are available on Qualtrics. But this is just to give you a taste and understanding, and then you can keep building forward, or I can keep making more videos that show more complicated features. So wherever you are, whatever institution you're a part of, open up your Qualtrics and make sure you're logged in. Again, generally you can get to this page by just typing in your institution's name and Qualtrics, and then I would just recommend bookmarking it so that you just know how to get, because usually if you're getting it through your institution, you're going to have like an institution specific link. You can't just go to qualtrics.com. That's going to take you to like the big Qualtrics, but you want to go to the one specific for your institution if that's how you signed up for the account. Now, you might not see anything on your screen. I'm showing you mine because I have a couple surveys in here already, but you'll see kind of something that looks like this, but without any active surveys in it. What I want you all to do, so this is just kind of like your home page. It shows you a few of your active surveys, a few of your projects. If you want to see all of your projects, you have to click this See All Projects button, but again, you might not see anything because you might be opening this fresh for the first time. But let's add a project. So create a new project. When you hit that button, it's going to ask you if you want to create it from scratch. Sometimes they have pre-built samples. I've never really used a template. I generally, when I create a survey, have to create it from scratch. So let's just create a survey from scratch. And then it's going to ask you to get started. And then you can title a new project. So let's just say I'm creating, an example survey, but whatever you want to call your survey, just for practice. And then it has a drop down here to create a blank survey, import a file, copy. So again, you can always take an existing survey, make a copy if you have another template. But again, for the purposes of today, just showing you how to start something from nothing, create a blank survey, and create that project. It's gonna take a couple moments, and then it'll bring you to the inside workings of the survey and how to build the questions. So first, let me show you kind of how this works. So you have the survey here, and in these blocks, you can add questions. So I'm first going to show you all how to I'm first going to show you how to create some questions. And generally, multiple choice questions are probably going to be what you're building. They have many other options, but up here, you can choose your question type, and you'll know which question this kind of left-hand toolbar is referring to, because you'll see this blue outline around the question. You can toggle this or go to this drop down and you can change it to text, and then it's going to change that question, a slider. So lots of different options. And again, it's really easy. You just hit the drop down and then it makes the change. So that's why I said Qualtrics is very user friendly. So let's say we have a question like, what did you eat for breakfast today? Thinking about this because I'm making this as I am going to eat breakfast right after. So let's say protein bar, cereal, oatmeal, fruit. I don't know. So you can type in all your answers here. You can also create other, and then when you do that, you can hit the down arrow button and it gives you options for this. Now, this is a lot and I'm not going to go through what all these mean, but this top button here, allow text entry, it allows you to add in a little text box there, which is pretty cool. Now, let's say you create this question like, wait, I actually want to make this, because right now you see circles next to each of the options and it's multiple choice. That means people can only pick one. But let's say you want people to select all that apply. You can change this. It's still a multiple choice question, but you can allow multiple answers. And now you see the circles turn to squares so that people can check these off instead of just select one. So that's a cool little, again, tweak that you can make. You can keep looking at this left-hand toolbar, and they have a lot of different functions that you can add to the questions. There's the number of choices. This is just like if you want to add more options. They sometimes have suggested choices. I'll show you that in a moment. You can have a list or select box. So like you can just play around. What's nice, and again, why Qualtrics is so user friendly is everything's like drop down and you click and you can play around and go back and forth. You can also add requirements, so you can force people to respond to this question so they can't move forward in the survey unless they answer this. Or you can request a response, which is like a gentle reminder, like, hey, you need to answer this question, but if they keep moving forward, you're not going to like stop the survey. And then you have all of these display logic things. So this is if you want like the way you answer one question to skip forward to a different question. So that's what survey logic is about. I'm not going to focus this video on survey logic, but that's probably the part 2 advanced video. But for now, just creating kind of the list of questions is what I want to get us comfortable with. So I said I would show you all how to do the suggested choices. So let's say I want to add another question. You can do that down here by adding a new question, that blue button, or you can also just hit that plus button underneath, and then you can type in a question here. Let's do, how much did you enjoy your breakfast this morning? As you can see, the minute I stopped typing, it already gave me some suggested choices. So you can go see here, you can toggle the selected choices, and then it gives you, using, I guess, Qualtrics AI, what it thinks the answer should be based off of your question. So it's really helpful. And sometimes these are pretty good. And you can look at other options like quantity, like they have all of these already built in. So you don't have to actually come up with these yourself. But I think the one they suggested worked well. Now, let's say you're also creating a lot of the same questions over and over again, because sometimes that happens. You're asking really similar questions, but just changing little aspects of them. You can either go to these 3 dots here and you can hit copy the question. And when you do that, it'll just duplicate the exact question for you below. And let's say you want to just ask, how much did you enjoy your lunch this morning? There, I just created the exact same similar question, but instead of having to retype out the whole thing, I just made the copied question. So again, this is why Qualtrics is so quick and easy, and I think user-friendly for that reason. Okay, a couple more things I want to show you. You can also add in open text entry questions. So if you have anything qualitative, what would you want for dinner? And you want people to type 2 to 3 sentences, then you can give them that text box. And that's another way to get some qualitative data in your survey. Now, I also mentioned that there's a way to add kind of just like a consent form or instructions or an intro. So let's say I want that at the top of my survey. So you'll want to hit this plus button above, because if you do that, then the question will just appear above and then, or you can create at the bottom and drag it to the top. Like you can also click and hold these questions and then they move. You can drag them. So again, drag and drop. That's why Qualtrics is so user friendly. So let's say we want to create an introduction. So right now it created just a multiple choice question. Let's change it to text/graphic because I just want some intro text. Thank you for taking the time to answer my questions about your daily meals. And that's a way that you can add a little intro to your survey. A couple other things. You'll see this little plus page break. A page break is basically when Qualtrics shows the survey to your participants, it's going to have them click an arrow in order to get to the next set of questions. So this is helps so that people don't feel like they're answering like 20 questions all at once and it's exhausting. Like you can ask the questions in chunks that make sense. So let's say you want to ask all your multiple choice questions first, then add a page break, and then have the qualitative question on a separate page. A page break will do that and create a break so they don't see all the questions together. And I'll show you what this looks like now. So you can actually preview your survey by hitting this preview button up top. Oh, it opened a pop-up window. And then it shows you what the questions look like on a computer and on a phone, which is pretty cool. And then so you can go through and you can see how your questions will actually look to your participants. And you can see I have my intro, I have my 3 multiple choice questions, but the qualitative question isn't here. So if you hit the arrow, that's the page break. You then see the other questions. So that's how you can, again, break up the survey with the page breaks. All right, let's go back to our survey here. Now, I just want to show you a couple things. There's a lot of buttons here, but I do want to show you the survey options, which is this 4th button on the coming down with the little, looks like the little toggles. And here you can see like go through all the settings of your survey. Again, I'm not going to go through all of these, but I do want to show you can look at the responses and then add a back button. This is generally good if you want people to be able to go back and forth, which is generally good practice in surveys. So you want to turn that back button on. And there's other features that you can turn on or off as well. Now back to our survey. One more thing I want to show you. Probably see these little numbers Q5, Q1, Q2. So these are important eventually when you collect data and you export your survey into an Excel or some sort of data set. This is what the variable name in the data. So this matters more in the analysis phase versus this, like your participants are never going to see these numbers. But it would be helpful to name these something that is related to your question. So that way, when you are exporting the data, it's not just like Q1, Q2, and you're like, oh, what is that for? So sometimes I like to name these like, related to what the question is about. And they can just be like 1 word or 2 words about the question, as you can see here. Okay. So let's say you're done, you're happy with the survey, you're ready to field this to people and give it out. You will hit the button publish. This is really important. You have to hit the blue big publish button because that will actually make the survey live. And then when you hit publish, it'll then generate a link. And this link is what you will use to send out to people to take your survey. You can copy that, hit OK. And then there you go. Your survey is active. You have the link. You can send it out to people and you've made your survey. So I will wrap up the video here. Again, this is just the intros of how to build a survey. Again, there are a lot of other functions. I did mention that you can do basic data analyses. So if you can see up here at the top of your survey, you can look at data analysis. You're not going to see anything for this because this survey doesn't have any responses yet. But this is where you would go to see all of your data. So then you can go to results, and results is where you can do some of that basic data analysis. So once people answer your question, you can see all the different, like they'll create charts and stuff for you, and then you can tell it like what types of things to run. Again, not for today's video, but just showing you. And then if you want to go back to your main survey page away from this specific survey, you can just click the Qualtrics logo and it brings you back to that home page. So hopefully this was helpful in getting you started and understanding the just beginnings of how to create a basic survey in Qualtrics. And if you found this video interesting and you want more information about the survey logic or the data analysis and the other features of Qualtrics, just let me know and I'm happy to create some follow-up videos. But thank you. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you on another episode of Office Hours with Jess.